Some people believe money reveals who you really are. Others believe it hides the truth. But one quiet morning inside a luxury home proved that kindness, when tested, speaks louder than wealth ever could. What happened between a lonely millionaire and the woman who cleaned his house would change both of their lives forever, and leave one of them in tears. Before we begin, if stories about kindness, humanity, and unexpected lessons touch your heart, please subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. You're watching Kindness Tales, where real emotions meet meaningful stories. Jonathan Hale had everything money could buy. A massive home in the suburbs of Chicago. Expensive cars lined neatly in his garage. Art on the walls that cost more than most people's yearly salaries. His bank accounts were full, yet his house was painfully quiet. At 56, Jonathan was a self-made millionaire. He built his fortune from nothing, working long nights, missing birthdays, holidays, and eventually, a marriage. His wife left years ago, tired of coming second to his business. His children barely called. Success had come at a price, and Jonathan paid it in silence. One of the few people he saw regularly was Maria. Maria was his housekeeper. She arrived every weekday morning at exactly 8, wearing simple clothes and carrying an old handbag. She cleaned quietly, never touching things she wasn't supposed to. She spoke softly, smiled politely, and always asked before doing anything extra. Jonathan barely noticed her at first. To him, she was part of the routine. But over time, he began to observe small things. How she hummed while dusting. How she straightened family photos, even though no one looked at them anymore. How she sometimes paused at the window, staring out with a distant sadness before getting back to work. Jonathan had been betrayed before. A business partner stole millions from him years ago. Since then, trust didn't come easily. He believed people were honest only when they had nothing to gain. One evening, after a long day, a dark thought crept into his mind. What if I tested her, he muttered to himself. The next morning, Jonathan did something unusual. Before leaving for work, he opened the safe in his home office. Inside were stacks of cash, neatly arranged. He made sure the door was wide open, clearly visible. Then he walked out, leaving the house silent. Cameras were hidden in the room. Jonathan told himself it was just curiosity. He needed to know. Could anyone be trusted when temptation was placed right in front of them? Maria arrived as usual. She hung her coat, tied her apron, and began cleaning. When she entered the office, she stopped cold. The safe was open. Her eyes widened. She stood still, staring at the money as if it might disappear. Slowly, she stepped closer. Her hands trembled slightly. For a long moment, she simply looked. Jonathan watched from his phone, his heart pounding. This was it. This was the truth. Maria whispered something under her breath. Then she stepped back. She closed the safe door. But she didn't stop there. She looked around the room, found a sticky note on the desk, and wrote something. Carefully, she placed it on the safe. Then she left the office and continued cleaning, though her movements were slower now, heavier. Hours later, Jonathan rushed home. His chest felt tight as he walked to the office. He saw the closed safe immediately. On it was the note. It read, "Sir, your safe was open. I closed it so nothing bad would happen. I did not touch anything. I hope you don't mind." Jonathan stood frozen. He replayed the footage. Over and over. He saw her hesitation. Her struggle. Her choice. But the part that broke him was what the cameras didn't show. After closing the safe, Maria had gone to the bathroom and cried quietly into a towel. Jonathan sank into his chair. Tears welled up in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed. The next morning, when Maria arrived, Jonathan was waiting. She froze when she saw him. Her face went pale. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. I didn't mean to touch your safe. I swear I didn't take anything. If you want to fire me." "No," Jonathan said, his voice cracking. "Please. Sit down." Maria hesitated, then sat on the edge of the chair. "I owe you an apology," Jonathan said. "I left the safe open on purpose." Maria's eyes widened in shock. "I tested you," he continued. "And I was wrong to do that." She looked down at her hands. "I understand," she said softly. "Life teaches us not everyone trusts kindness." Jonathan swallowed hard. "Why didn't you take anything?" he asked. "You could have." "I wouldn't have known." Maria took a deep breath. "Because I know what it feels like to lose everything," she said. She told him her story. How her husband died suddenly. How medical bills swallowed their savings. How she worked 2 jobs while raising her grandson. How there were nights she went to bed hungry so the child could eat. There were moments, she admitted, when that money could have changed my life. But if I took it, I'd lose myself. And I couldn't do that. Jonathan's tears finally fell. In that moment, the walls he had built for decades collapsed. That day, Jonathan didn't fire Maria. He doubled her salary. He paid for her grandson's education. But more importantly, he began something even bigger. He started talking to her. Listening. Asking about her life. Slowly, his house filled with laughter again. He invited his children over. He volunteered at shelters. He began leaving small acts of kindness everywhere, like breadcrumbs leading him back to humanity. Months later, Jonathan admitted something to Maria. "I didn't cry because you were honest," he said. "I cried because I realized how poor I'd become without kindness." Maria smiled. "Kindness makes us rich in ways money never can." The safe remained closed after that. But Jonathan's heart stayed open. And from that day on, he never tested kindness again. He trusted it. Because when kindness is real, it doesn't need a trap. It reveals itself quietly, bravely, and without asking for anything in return. So if you ever find yourself tempted to doubt people, remember this story. Remember that true wealth is not what you lock away, but what you choose to give. And maybe, just maybe, the smallest act of honesty can change a life, including your own.